Yo. No more inspiration, all out of medication. In other words, I am no longer patient. Back and forth pacing through the shell casings. In case of emergency, yo, just forget my face and leave me there wasted. Vision blurred by irritant irrigation. Iridescent rain and pain plagues the nation while we craft magic in a quarantine basement. No last known location. Nothing but smoke and mirrors lost in translation. One by one, all the tax cattle in camp concentration are murdered by the butcher, leading to illumination, industrial salvation, toxic politics, policies for pollution, prospects of prospering, confined to contribution, and population rising, plus the energy they use in renewable confusion, puts holes in the skies until every human's losing, thus introducing a simple solution. Eradicate the mass majority, but start with the minorities. The poor people, elderly and sick, they rich get to choose them. Chemicals and food, son, put the righteous at stake. Erase the constitution, everything's now fake. Real is the substitution, a subhuman fate designated to the movement. So I'm spewing elocution and mid-electrocution. Stunned by the confusion, is this ECT or a new form of restitution? Dead the resolutions, all I know is that I feel electric in this chair, while the Elohim stares from behind the two-way mirror with an aura of despair. And oh shit, now I finally care. In fact, I would say the harmonies convey the fact beautifully. Eureka presents a euphony of euphemistic eulogies. Eudaimonia, euphoria erased and replaced with useless scrutiny. No use to see the used to see, no use to see the used to see. Nobody sees the whole truth that I'm fucking poop. Truthfully, you clay jaded glaze shades weighing on my souls. The clandestine eugenic population control. Euthanasia, facing abuse and euthanasia got me losing my faith. Now truth is danger, look who played you. Truly major, it was your own government, and his and hers and mine and ours. And aren't we loving it? Beneath being held in ransom for free living, malignance ridden like the cancers we've been given. All along the true agendas have been hidden, or perhaps we're just nestled at the bottom of the bottle of that poison you've been sipping. Agendas stay hidden till these corrupt minds are hacked and overridden, history overwritten every day. So get to living, stop questioning existence and focus on what I'm spitting. Yo, dead it with the heady shit. Get it with the heady shit. Yo, get it with the heady shit.
Just a stanza to drain the painfully worded further.
Yo, get it with the heady shit.
About the event 201 agenda, highlighting the recommendations, the call to action that was issued as a result of this tabletop exercise that was held in New York.
Yo, get it with the heady shit.
Involving some of the very players who are now in the front lines of this fight against the pandemic that they themselves were simulating.
Yo, get it with the heady shit. And yo, get it with the heady shit, laughing full of ready whip instead of set for. And yo, get it with the heady shit, laughing full of ready whip instead of set for Armageddon's jet. And when the levees split, I'm medically reticent. Residents affected by the CDC's experiment. Society is menacing, it's evident. No benefits or venison, shut up and take your medicine. I see y'all hesitant for real beef, like Wellington, psychokinetic veterans. Soldiers on the front line, we're setting a precedent, arresting the president. Hey yo, fuck you and your mortal dreams of keeping demons relevant. Whatever they buying, I ain't selling it. Sackler, Hearst, Rockefeller, Rothschild, melon heads. I spit a wormhole and y'all fell in it.
internal CBP pandemic response plan obtained by the nation outlines the Immigration and Border Agency's ability to actively surveil and detain individuals suspected of carrying the illness. Titled Operations Plan for Pandemic Response and marked for official use only, the document was drafted during the avian flu pandemic of 2007. It's a blunt statement of authority, describing Customs and Border Patrol overseeing potential tent cities of quarantined detainees at the border and coordinating with unspecified intelligence agencies, both foreign and domestic, as well as the Pentagon. Now, as I say, I will invite you to go and read the document for yourself and read the article from The Nation that frames that document, but it does frame it in a highly partisan way, as if all of this only applies to immigrants or people from the third world or something. This applies to everyone, including, of course, even American citizens attempting to return to the United States, and does make them subject to the whims of CBP officials, such that coming into contact or exposure with this virus or exhibiting any symptom is enough for the CBP to flex its muscle and, granted through this document, to put people in quarantine in 10 cities. And if there actually is, or in any future case was, some sort of actually infectious bioweapon or whatever that's spreading through the population, every way to make sure someone catches it is to lock them in a tent city with a lot of other people who presumably do have it. But that being said, the document is just another glimpse into the types of powers that are on the books that have been laid out for years in the event of what we're seeing today. And it is important to keep this in mind. Again, we're looking at a lot of documents from the United States context today, but this applies to countries all around the world.
October 2018 as 2019 really was the marking of
I'm going to be updating the 11 years of information that has taken place between then and now to move us a little further along that road towards what we are seeing right now, which is the flicking of the switch and the turning on of the apparatus for medical martial law.
It is happening, and it is important to understand to see how we got to where we are today, that it gave them better understand what is likely to happen. All of their enemies terrorists and launch actually war upon them. So, well, now roll up your sleeves, authoritarians around the world are benefiting from the massive power grab that has taken place.
I will be taking that information for granted, that you are familiar with the steps that have already been put in place that I was outlining. For example, the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act, which was drafted in the wake of the 2001 anthrax bioterror false flag event, which was subsequently adopted by over 40 states and allows for quarantines and mandated vaccinations in the event of any declared public health emergency. And it is that Model State Emergency Health Powers Act which gave rise to legislation in numerous different state legislatures that are now being implemented
as I speak
in various states declaring public health emergencies. So it is important to have that background and that legislative framework in place in your mind. So once again, I will exhort you to go back
absolutely
and refamiliarize yourself with the material in that.
They were able to foresee what was coming, and look,
So
they had this.
That being said, let's get straight into it. And actually, we're going to start with a document that was originally drafted and put on the books in 2007,
in the face of these
but
world leaders and say,
actually
look, we told
was
you
not
so. Now we
released
have
to the
the
public at that time. We're just
plan
finding out
for
about it
exactly
now
what you
in the
should
wake
do
about
about
this, including as point number 7, we're getting this information from The Nation makes very explicit
this sort of thing
the crackdown
is exactly
on
what
what
is
is
deemed
planned
to
out
be
in these
mis-
pandemic response
and
plans,
disinformation
including
by the
authoritative documents
sources
from
in the
CBP. So,
fact-checking
take a
world,
look at
no
that
doubt.
about
But let's move
the
ahead in the
pandemic
timeline from
outbreak
2007
and
to what are we seeing
2010,
right
where
now?
we encounter lockstep. And lockstep comes from a series of scenarios that were laid out by the Rockefeller Foundation in conjunction with the Global Business Network, and that were described in a document called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. And this document starts by noting that the Rockefeller Foundation believes that in order to understand the many ways in which technology will impact international development in the future, we must first broaden and deepen our individual and collective understanding of the range of possibilities. This report and the project upon which it is based is one attempt to do that. In it, we share the outputs and insights from a year-long project undertaken by the Rockefeller Foundation and Global Business Network, designed to explore the role of technology in international development through scenario planning, a methodology in which GBN is a longtime leader. It goes on to describe more about why it's choosing these various scenarios and why it's focusing on technology, but long story short, there are a number of different scenarios that they envision of what could happen in a more technologically dependent world in the future and what must happen as a result of that. And one of these scenarios that they were planning, again on the records in 2010, was called
Lockstep.
And let me know if this sounds familiar to you. The document starts by noting that Lockstep is a scenario which involves a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. And it starts by the scenario by noting, in 2012, the pandemic that the world had been anticipating for years finally hit. This new influenza strain, originating from wild geese, was extremely virulent and deadly. Even the most pandemic-prepared nations were quickly overwhelmed when the virus streaked around the world, infecting nearly 20% of the global population and killing 8 million in just 7 months, the majority of them healthy young adults. The pandemic also had a deadly effect on economies. International mobility of both people and goods screeched to a halt, debilitating industries like tourism and breaking global supply chains. Sounds familiar. Even locally, normally bustling shops and office buildings sat empty for months, devoid of both employees and customers. The pandemic blanketed the planet, though disproportionate numbers died in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central America, where the virus spread like wildfire in the absence of official containment protocols. But even in developed countries, containment was a challenge. The United States' initial policy of strongly discouraging citizens from flying proved deadly in its leniency, accelerating the spread of the virus not just within the US, but across borders. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck, and even intensified. In order to protect themselves from the spread of increasingly global problems, from pandemics and transnational terrorism to environmental crises and rising poverty, leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power. You can continue reading through this scenario and the way it played out in the scenario planners' fevered imagination.
Should work together to maintain travel and trade during severe
Although the system is not
pandemics.
perfect,
Travel and trade
NATO
are
countries
essential
participate
to the
in
global
joint
economy
exercises
as well as
in which they work
national
out logistics,
and
such as how
local
fuel and
economies,
food will be
and they should
provided,
maintain
what language they will
face
speak,
of a
and what
pandemic.
radio frequencies will be
Government should
used.
provide
Few,
more
if
resources
any,
to
such
tax
measures are in place for response to an epidemic. Plan proceeds. The world does not fund in which organization that manage the broad set of coordinated activities required in a piece of legislation known as the Defense Production Act of an epidemic in the United States into place to essentially nationalize certain industries out of at the behest of the government to almost as if they were live simulating something that they were about to do, almost, and martial law. What an amazing coincidence of what is happening right now. Millions of Indian citizens, you don't have to go very far to their cultural practices exactly in relationship to what is happening, even as I speak. Well, good question. How else would you do that other than a very traumatic situation as envisioned by the Rockefeller Foundation and Global Business Network?
Frightening similarities
With what is currently happening can be seen, in particular, by explicitly mentioning
a scenario presented in which the spread, course, duration, mortality, etc. are described goes as far as to make a drastic restriction of fundamental rights necessary. The scenario states, in this respect, the competent authorities, first of all the public health authorities and primarily the public health officers, must take measures to prevent communicable diseases. The IFSG, the relevant legislation, allows, among other things, restrictions of basic rights, such as the right to the inviolability of the home. Within the framework of necessary protective measures, the fundamental right of personal freedom and the freedom of assembly can also be restricted. In addition to these measures, to be ordered directly by the public health officer, the Federal Ministry of Health can order by statutory order that threatened sections of the population have to take part in protective vaccinations or other measures of specific prophylaxis, whereby the right to physical integrity can be restricted.
I would suggest to go back and read and reread that passage several times until it sinks in, but yes, in 2013, the German government was already drafting scenarios that envisioned mandatory vaccinations or specific prophylaxis in the event of a spreading communicable disease, and oh yeah, restrictions on the right of personal freedom and freedom of assembly, which is particularly convenient in a period where, as I've had cause to note in recent times, this is a period in which a lot of protest is happening all around the globe, all at the same time, and the globalists are on the run, right? What could they possibly do to avoid the big people's uprising that's coming? Oh, that's right, a nationally, globally declared public health emergency that will restrict freedom of assembly and freedom of travel, freedom to gather in groups of more than 10 people in country after country. Bye-bye Yellow Vests. I guess it was fun while it lasted, huh? Bye-bye Hong Kong and everywhere else. I mean, everywhere else that has any sort of protest movement. Well, not anymore. No one is going to be out assembling in protest of this, and if they do, well, medical martial law is already in place. That was laid out in a document in 2013 by the German government, which had an article in February 2017. CDC seeks controversial new quarantine powers to stop outbreaks.
Censorship.
Federal health officials may be about to get greatly enhanced powers to quarantine people as part of an ongoing effort to stop outbreaks of dangerous, contagious diseases. The new powers are outlined in a set of regulations the Center of Disease Control and Prevention published late last month to update the agency's quarantine authority for the first time since the 1940s. The outlined changes are being welcomed by many health lawyers, bioethicists, and public health specialists as providing important tools for protecting the public. But the CDC's increased authority is also raising fears that the rules could be misused in ways that violate civil liberties.
This morning, emergency measures in New York. The state's governor deploying the National Guard to New Rochelle, a suburb of New York City, in an effort to contain an outbreak there. Residents within a 1-mile radius are required to stay within the area for a 2-week period.
It is a dramatic action, but it is the largest cluster in the country, and this is literally a matter of life and death.
Anybody can look at a map, and basically New Rochelle is a point where if you have the military, you can deploy them within 15 miles of each choke point. And then the city...
Full confession, I haven't had time to read through the entire document yet, but I have skimmed through important passages of it. And the Nation frames this story this way. They say, on Wednesday, that is previous Wednesday, the World Health Organization designated the virus a pandemic, meaning that the disease is now considered to have spread worldwide. Plus, pandemics also confer extraordinary privileges on U.S. authorities.
In response to the worsening situation and the head of an anticipated nationwide curfew, the IDF entered its highest state of alert, which practically means the Israeli military's emergency preparedness for war.
Wartime footing. We need a wartime footing for pandemic response, and that is something that's popping up in the news as I speak. Emergency war powers that have not been invoked since the Korean War, for example, in the case of the United States, are being invoked right now because we are at war. Once again, this time with a hidden enemy. Where have we heard that type of rhetoric before?
The president of the region of Lombardy has said that he wants the military to be called in to enforce the lockdown, calling on people to stay at home. This is really the mantra that they're leading out to the public at large.
Funds for sustainable development. Make policy decisions that favor the greater good over individuals. Drastically reduce the use of power, water, and anything else that creates carbon pollution. Use bureaucracies to make sweeping decisions outside of democratic processes. Increase taxes, fees, and regulations. And finally, implement policies meant to incentivize a reduced population.
They said, you know, the people in the United States are not going to be too happy when they find out about this. They're just not going to like it. So what are we going to do? We got to get them to get on board with it. We need a whole new way of thinking. So there was another book that they did. Now consensus, you know what consensus is. It's agreement of all parties. If we all get together in this room, we want to do something, we're going to hear from everybody, we're going to work it out, we're going to stay in here all night until we all decide on something. That's consensus, right? But a new consensus is neutralization of the opposition. Neutralizing your enemies. That's what you're going to see in your government meetings. That's your government at work. When you come into a meeting and you find police in the room, you find men with guns in the room because you might say something, well, that's a new consensus. So, what is this about? What's that all about? They use what's called the Delphi technique on you. That is the Rand Corporation mind control technique developed during the Cold War. It was designed to bring groups of people to a predetermined outcome while giving them the impression that it was all their idea. That's right. You're looking at it. Not now. I'm not doing it to you. But you're going to find that, no, I want you to think for yourself. I know there's people in here who don't like what I'm saying now. You'll have your chance. This is not something I believe like with faith. This is something I know.
Never let a crisis go to waste, especially a government-manufactured crisis. The elites needed a pandemic lie to shut the countries down. Now they have it. With over 3 billion people throughout the world in lockdown, countless businesses forced to close and going bankrupt, and social distancing from the COVID-19 invisible enemy, the new norm, indeed. This is unprecedented in the world's history. The politicians are doing the same exact thing as they do when they get us into war. The governments are closing down entire economies. They and the media have declared fighting the virus a war. And just as they take us to war after war with no exit strategy, so too, their lockdown war strategy has started the Greatest Depression with no exit strategy that can stop the global economy from crashing. We are going to see crime levels going off the charts, as the little people cannot pay the rent and bills. These politicians are all telling us what to do because they do not have to worry about getting paid. They steal our money in the name of taxes. You cannot put millions out of work and not expect this thing to explode in a way we have never seen before in history. This thing was going down before. They only propped up the equity market with trillions of dollars created out of thin air. The world is being led into the age of biological terror with controlled demolition of the economy that is already causing unprecedented carnage across markets and around the globe. Instead of fixing the broken healthcare system, we would rather kill off the people who need it the most. This is Agenda 21 unfolding in front of our eyes. The Fed will be the government to the government. We are being played and robbed.
National security is more important than individual will. All sports broadcasts will proceed as normal. No more than 2 people may gather anywhere without permission. Use only the drugs prescribed by your boss or supervisor. Shut up. Be happy. Obey all orders without question. The comfort you've demanded is now mandatory. Be happy. At last, everything is done for you.
The end is nigh.
So you should pump this shit like they